Were you doing the Elaine and twisted your ankle?
She does dance kind of like Elaine.
Who?
John and I have a mutual friend,
Elaine Bennis.
Well, then, I'm in good company.
Oh, and Kramer. Mm-hmm. Kramer's friends with her, too.
Oh, it must be from Seinfeld?
It is.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
Which I have seen, but I haven't watched every detail about. Or
I love this new thing. I haven't watched every detail to remember, like, the main thing about something.
Look, I'm giving Kat no more grief because right after we gave you grief last week about The Princess Bride, on my show, we were talking about The Evil Dead Part 2 or something that I maybe haven't had seen.
Yeah. Oh, no.
And they're like, well, at least in this new one, nobody gets raped by a tree. And I'm like, what? Like, from the second movie. I'm like, maybe I haven't seen it then.
Yeah, you'd remember that part.
Could I have forgotten that part? And they're like, no, if you remember one thing from that movie, it's that. I'm like, okay, then I must not have seen it.
No, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to tease John anymore ever again about not watching Goonies.
Oh, there you go. See?
Ever.
So really, Kat had it coming, John.
Was it karma?
I never have it coming because I'm always fair and kind. Should be more like me, John. Kind, fair, no gatekeeping.
I'm trying.
Oh, as if you weren't like, you can't remember that part.
I don't remember every detail
of
this show, Kat.
Of the podcast, right? There certainly are no recordings of that taking place.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of 1980s Now Oddities, a weekly examination of unusual biological phenomenon on humans. Remember what you were saying, John, about the first time someone listens?
They're like,
take two.
They'll be so disappointed they thought this was a cryptozoology show.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would be in.
Okay.
I'd listen to that show.
All right. This is, hey, don't go anywhere yet. If this is the first time you're listening, stay. Here's the real introduction. You're listening to another episode of 1980s Now. It's actually a weekly examination of the importance of 1980s pop culture, and I remember John used to make fun of me of that too. Importance of 1980s pop culture and its influence today. My name is Will, and joining me as always are my friends and my co-hosts Kat and John. Hey guys.
Hello guys.
Hey guys.
Hey, on today's show we're going to be talking about proms in the 1980s and 1980s proms.
Right on.
Because they're still happening.
1980. I get it. 1980s proms, not to be confused with proms in the 1980s.
Yeah.
As an adjective.
I got it.
Phenomenal.
I got it.
Yeah.
I'm interested. Okay.
He's got it.
But before that, we're going to review current news stories related to 1980s media, including a new action thriller set in the 1980s. Duran Duran may release a holiday album, not the holiday you might think. Brad Pitt just sold Elvira's haunted house. And an 80s prom is the centerpiece of a new Disney Plus movie.
Oh.
Time codes are in the show notes if you'd like to skip around. Hey, a couple of quick announcements. First, we're recording a new episode live this week, Wednesday, May 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern on simulcast simultaneously. It's simulcast at the same time on Facebook and YouTube, meaning you could join us on either of those platforms. So we're going to be on YouTube. Okay, so you can be there. We'll be there. That's a special message just for you. Please join us because I don't know what the topic's going to be yet, but whatever it is, we're going to look to you for your input, your feedback, your comments, and we're going to share them live, respond to them live on the show. That'll then air a few days after that. Hey, the other announcement is keep your ears open for our conversation with Larry the Duck Dunn. Yeah, that Larry the Duck. You may recall Larry the Duck was, he was, for the better part of the 1980s, the music director at the legendary radio station WLIR out of Long Island in New York, and is currently one of the DJs on First Wave, Channel 33 on Sirius XM, DJing every Monday through Friday morning, and I think often on Saturdays too, where he plays what we would think of, I guess, as new wave music. And LIR in the 1980s, certainly in the New York area, and they had ROQ in LA, did something similar. I don't know if the Midwest had it or the South had it, but this station was responsible for breaking a lot of the, I won't say new wave, but new music bands before any of the top four radio stations picked them up. So,
so lesser known, yeah.
lesser known at the time, but you'd be shocked. I mean, I'm talking about U2. They broke U2.
Right. Yeah.
So say lesser known, but was U2 ever lesser known? Yes, in the United States,
That's
and LIR had them. But the list of the bands that they, first introduced because they decided to be a radio station that provided this alternative music is enormous. But includes many of the acts that we love, Depeche Mode, Duran Duran, Howard Jones. These folks are credited LIR with helping them get airplay in the U.S.
Do you listen to Larry the Duck in the morning?
Do I listen to him on Sirius XM?
On Sirius?
Every morning, 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. I get up and do that. You know me, I'm an early bird.
An early duck, if you will.
He's an early duck.
Yes, the early duck gets the...
Cracker.
It's the cracker or the quacker?
Those are
both.
parrots.
Yeah, the quacker.
That's a parrot. Cracker.
All right. Hey, enough of that. Let's get caught up on 1980s news. I mean, you see, the thing about it, John, is some folks might not like the theme, but the music, the what do you call it? Would you say like, when a network has like 4 or 5 notes, is that called the theme? What is that called? It's called like there's something for it.
A motif?
Yeah, there is. It's like a Sonic brand kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So ours musically is 1980s now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you just say that musically represented, it's that, which also works for 1980s news.
Yes.
It's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
1980s news.
I want to make a video just for Marcus and explain it.
You don't have to convince me.
Yeah, I know. I'm talking to you as a proxy for Marcus.
Okay. That's
because but for you, we wouldn't have to deal with him. Oh. Just kidding.
so accurate.
Just kidding. Hey, this week in 1980s news, per Deadline, Paramount sets 1980s action thriller Bella with Samara Weaving. So Paramount Pictures is developing this new film with the Scream 6 actress set to star and Larissa Kondracki, directing it. And among the many producers helping bring this film to screen includes the stuntman turned director Chad Stileski. I'm also hope I'm not butchering his name because I'm a big fan of his. He's the guy who was the stuntman for Brandon Lee in The Crow. Unfortunately for him, because he was there during that terrible moment, and then was his body double throughout the rest of the film. But he also was a Keanu Reeves stunt double in the Matrix films. And then became the director of Keanu Reeves in all of the John Wick movies.
Oh, wow.
But the movie itself is based on Jason Markarian's 2020 Blacklist script with Jesse Wigatow handling revisions.
Yeah, I saw that. And the first thing I thought was, is a Blacklist script like a script that was going to be for that series and they decided not to use it for the series called Blacklist? Or is it a script that
I didn't even think that.
Is it like blackballed? Like they decided they weren't going to have it made? Or what's a Blacklist script?
Yeah.
Right. The no-go list, no fly.
Yeah, I was thinking of the McCarthy era, list that they had of, if you're a communist, they
the Red Scare.
And writers went on this list and they were, blackballed in Hollywood. No, the Blacklist, I had to look it up. I didn't know. But it turns out ever since 2005, this gentleman named Franklin Leonard, who was a development executive who worked at Universal Pictures, at Will Smith's Overbrook Entertainment, a number of different production companies. Ever since 2005, he's put together a list of screenplays not yet produced, but are the most liked among those in Hollywood that have actually read them. So somehow he's able to survey, the various film houses, producers, all that get these scripts submitted by writers and get their feedback. What do you like? And then he puts this list together.
It ought to be called like a green list. Like it's the step before being green lit almost. A blacklist make it sound like blackballed. Like you're never going to have this movie. It's so.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe it should be turquoise list.
Because it's
something close to green.
Green?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yep. But clearly a shade different. Because otherwise you'd be looking at the one list and the other list.
Oh, right.
Which one is the... But of the more than 1,000 screenplays the Blacklist has included since 2005, 440 have been produced, including Argo, American Hustle, Juno, The King's Speech, Slumdog Millionaire, Spotlight, The Revenant, The Descendants, and Hell or High Water. So a number of, what now you think like, how did that ever make it on this list of films that no one wanted to make? It's kind of surprising.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm impressed by that number. without knowing the volume of the list itself. You're like, oh, 440 got produced. I'm like, out of.
No. I'm sorry. I said of the more than 1,000 screenplays.
Okay.
How much more than
So somewhere north of 1,000.
Okay.
Not
All right.
quite
So
half.
not quite two. All right. Fair enough.
Together, the films have grossed over $30 billion.
Jeez.
Been nominated for 241 Academy Awards, 205 Golden Globe Awards, and have won 50 and 40 of those respectively.
Wow.
So my understanding is like, so folks get this. Yeah, it's a good movie. I love this movie. It's not for us. And then this happens a number of times.
Yeah.
With the same script, gets on the list. But somebody picks it up, and these seem to be, I don't know if all of these offhand, they seem to be smaller, sort of more indie type films, which art house type films. So probably I would imagine that's why studios pass on it, because it seems like everybody's looking for a tent pole these days.
Yeah. Where's the blockbuster? Where's the spectacle?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's a character piece. Yeah. Sounds good. Pass.
Yeah. Like this Slumdog Millionaire sounds great. What does this guy spend his money on? Oh, he's not actually a millionaire. In fact, he actually lives in the slums. Oh, is he part dog at least? No. Does he wear a cape? No. So with regard to this film set in the 80s, however, that's set to come out, it's described, according to this Deadline piece, as being set against the backdrop of a crime wave that gripped New York City in the 1980s. Bella is a hyper-stylized action thriller about a cop's daughter who, as her father clings to life following an assassination attempt, goes on a rampage to unearth her father's attacker and weed out deep-rooted corruption in the New York City Police Department. That sounds like an 80s movie.
It does.
Not only is it set in the 80s, that sounds like an 80s movie.
It sure does.
Now, in fact, as I think about this, if you gender swapped this, I think it's a Steven Seagal movie. Isn't this above the law?
Yeah, I was going to say the only thing maybe not so 80s is that it's a woman. I think in the 80s, this would more typically have been a male in that role.
When I looked at this news article, let's see, is there a way to say this without seeming, I'm not sure. I'll just say it. When I looked at this news article, the first thing that struck me was Samara Weaving is far too distractingly beautiful to helm any 80s movie unless it's a Weird Science remake. I don't know. Are you allowed to say that someone's attractive? I don't know if that's allowed anymore. Yeah, but this actress, she's strikingly beautiful, right? She has those high cheekbones. She's model attractive. Yeah. And often when I see people that are that attractive in films with supposed to be regular people, it's distracting to me. They're like, come on, you're too pretty. You wouldn't have had to go to police academy. You would have had other benefits. And I don't know what it is, but when I saw it, I'm like, wow.
You would have had an OnlyFans account if that existed then.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but she's a fine actress. I saw Scream 6. She was fine in that. But especially just the publicity photo they used. I'm like, wow, what a great looking young woman. And am I going to be able to watch the movie for what she's doing versus just going, how did she end up in this position? Like, you think of someone in an 80s kind of story like that being a little more grizzled or a little more something. I don't know. She's too polished.
Well,
almost.
she might be. We don't know what she's going to look like in the movie.
Okay. Yeah.
So John was just being, let me get cut away. John was being sexist about a woman can't be beautiful.
I wasn't being sexist. I was being slightly misogynistic.
What?
Let's get it straight.
Slightly misogynistic.
I agree with you that again, I think that is sexist, but I also, I can't, I can't help but look, those stereotypes exist for a reason. And the reason is that typically people who are that attractive don't have those roles in life. They have some other role in life. And so when you see an incredibly attractive actor or actress portraying a role that historically would not be someone that's that attractive, there's nothing wrong with it. Perfectly capable, I'm sure. It's distracting. So that's why I said she seems distractingly attractive.
I have a question.
Yes.
So this incredibly attractive actor that I haven't looked up or seen
take a
visually.
Look. She is
I will.
Don't do it now. You'll be too distracted.
Not right now.
That's right. You'll be able to finish the show.
I'll get
just going to
all
flash her on the
distracted.
screen. Samara Weaving.
Is it a facial thing? Is it a body thing?
John's an ass man. He was just looking at her butt.
Have you not seen my license plate?
Yeah. It says something about ass man.
It says that?
Yeah, our friend Elaine has a friend.
Oh my God.
We're back to Seinfeld, Cat. Sorry, we're back.
Oh, okay. So I wonder if everything you've ever seen her in, she's wearing, something to be particularly attractive, but you've never seen her.
I don't know.
She
well, in this picture,
morning,
she's just wearing a jacket is all.
I'm going to tell you, she's actually also plays Thea Preston, Bill Preston's daughter in the Bill and Ted final Bill and Ted film, Face the Music. So she plays.
Yep.
She plays, little Ted. And so she's not as made up, intended to certainly distract us in that role. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she's one of those people that says, people say, are Margot Robbie and her the same person?
Yeah, I see
There's
that.
like 2 or 3 actresses who look kind of similar like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks like she's very particularly made up, which is totally fine. Mm. But I'm just wondering, if she were in the grocery store or something, if you might feel the same way. I don't know.
I will still see an 80s movie. Don't worry. I will go see it anyway.
Look, John, I agree with you for lots of reasons that are not necessarily sexist, as you're saying. And in fact, just being like, look, a lot of these things are just based on our experience. In real life, we don't run into a lot of attractive cops or vigilantes.
Right.
But then I was going to say the flip side of it is, I guess, that there's a few 80s films I could think of, at least one I'm thinking of, where you did have an attractive female vigilante of sorts, like the Angel films. They're not big blockbuster films, but I agree. Generally, it's contemporary. We have a lot of examples of that, of attractive women kicking ass.
Let me try one last run at not getting canceled. So,
okay, you'll get more popular.
I can't handle. Okay,
if you're canceled,
if I take an airline flight and I see an attractive airline hostess, I'm not surprised because I typically see attractive young ladies or attractive young men being airline hosts or hostess.
Okay.
If I call a plumber and the plumber comes in and is very attractive, you go, whoa, well, you weren't expecting that. It's distracting. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You see, you're both laughing because if the plumber is really attractive, when they leave, you go, is it just me or whoo, the plumber, right? It's a thing, is what I'm saying.
Yes, so, I get you.
Yeah.
I think, though, but before they leave, what you say is, I don't have a way to pay you. I'm hoping we can work something out.
Oh, my gosh.
That's what I think when an attractive plumber shows up at my house.
I'm here to check the pipes.
Yeah.
And all I can think is you're going, I'm hoping she has plumber butt.
Yes. Ass man.
But her pants would fit is the thing. Okay, that's okay. Hey, it's been really nice being on the show, everyone.
Our show's going to be huge now. We're going to get a whole other audience. According to the film's producer, Craig Flores, Bella cleverly reinvents the female-led action genre, pairing a sexy and unapologetic rock and roll edge with the gritty, heightened realism of 80s New York City. I don't know that it reinvents anything. Again, I think we have contemporary examples of this. I think like Salt with, Angelina Jolie?
Yeah.
Okay.
The movie with Charlize Theron, which it's from Chad Stahelski, I think, who made the John Wick films. He made Atomic Blonde.
Yes.
That's just a contemporary thing.
The way it's described in the article, all I could think was Sergeant Joan Jett.
The unapologetic rock.
Right, exactly. The unapologetic rocker,
edge.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And Joan Jett. So that's what I want to see. Hey. Sergeant Joan Jett. Can we change the name? Is it too late? Is this in stone? Green?
No, you're talking about not Joan Jett now, though, because we're talking about set in the 80s. So.
Yeah, 80s Joan Jett, of course.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She hates herself for loving me.
So do I. I hate her for that, too.
Do you? Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah, jealous. In other 1980s news, as reported by WMMR, Duran Duran's thinking about releasing a holiday album. Mm-hmm. So the band may end up turning the whole idea of holiday album on its head, it turns out, because they're not thinking about releasing a Christmas LP. No. Instead, the band is thinking about the potential release of a Halloween album.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there not special music that plays when there's Duran Duran news?
Oh, John.
I'd like to know that as well.
I love
John,
excuses to write music. All right.
There should be confetti. There should be reflex. Something is going on in the background.
Yeah.
Some kind of remix is going on.
It's going to be another 1980s news, but it'll be to the reflex thing, and I'll have Simon Le Bon say it instead of me.
No news item.
So we know about this potential Halloween release from Nick Rhodes because he touched upon this idea in a new interview with Record Collector magazine. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame band performed a Halloween-themed show in Las Vegas on Halloween in 2022. Kat, did you know about that?
I did, because it was all over social media. And most people were thrilled either at the idea, if they couldn't be there, or they were thrilled that they were there. And a couple of people, maybe one, I don't know how many, were unhappy because
maybe one idiot.
Statistically speaking, you think out of all Duran Duran fans, most liked it. But maybe, why are we even having a conversation then about this?
I thought it was funny because they were going expecting to hear all of the usual usual favorites, which they did the night before in Las Vegas, and which they did at every other show. But for the Halloween show, they played like a Night Boat, which is like an older song of theirs that's kind of creepy. Okay. And just a lot of their lesser known ones. Yeah.
And a bunch of covers too, according to this.
I'll send you a link. And some covers. And this one person was very unhappy. But most people were very
what
happy.
Are Halloween covers? Like the Monster Mash or?
That would be talking? I'd like to hear that.
I'd like to hear a Duran Duran cover of the Monster Mash.
I can't remember the set list. I'm sure we could call it up pretty quickly.
This is Halloween or...
Yay!
No, but it included covers of the Rolling Stones' "Painted Black."
Yes.
Susie and the Banshees' "Spellbound," and Rick James' "Super Freak." So the songs I play at an elementary school Halloween party, in addition to Cheb Woolley and Monster Mash and all that. So there's not enough Duran Duran songs that, like you're suggesting, that are Halloween adjacent that they could just do their own album of, I don't know, updating some of their old songs or something.
I don't think so. Well, there's one song in particular that many people were bonkers over. It's called "Love Voodoo," and I don't know that they've ever. I have no idea. Maybe they've performed it at some show somewhere, but people were shocked. They were like, "Oh my gosh, they played Love Voodoo!" And of course, voodoo is kind of. People think of creepy things.
Love Potion number 9 is a Halloween song now. Yeah.
They could just do a regular Duran Duran book, but in a minor key. You're done.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Kat, I would be with that one guy. I would be pissed. We've talked about this before. When you go to see a concert, you want to hear the hits.
You want to hear the hits.
All right, here's what I say to that one guy. Kind of fan are you that you didn't go to the one last night and you only went to the one tonight? If you're in town, you go to every show.
You go to both.
If you only went to one, you'd have no right to complain you're not that big a fan. Boom! Mic drop.
Well, in his defense, probably nosebleed seats cost $350 in Las Vegas. That'd probably be the reason. Slow him down. I don't know.
Maybe.
Mr.
But
Money
they had
Tags.
amazing costumes and makeup on.
Is that right?
You should see the pictures.
Really?
I did see those. Yeah, I saw that when it happened. Okay. And they apparently they do something like that a lot of Halloweens, right? Where they dress up and stuff, I think.
That I don't know. Okay. I don't know for sure. They had a lot of fun with it.
Cool. Yeah. Double album with Oingo Boingo. There. I planted the seed.
Yeah.
Because they are known for doing, they already have creepy songs, but they do, or used to do Halloween sets, regular Halloween, like every Halloween.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I do play Dead Man's Party at the elementary school too.
Yes.
I'm not kidding. Those songs are on the elementary school Halloween playlist when I DJ those. Of course, this potential Halloween album would follow the release of Duran Duran's 2021 album, Future Past, which was, largely celebrated on this show.
Yes.
Let's see. The band performed 48 shows from August 2022 through September 2023 in support of that LP. Kat, how many did you see? So let's do some math here.
Wait, this year?
Out of 48, how many of those shows did you see?
I saw 2.
2. So I can reduce that fraction. Let's see. 1/24th.
Okay. So 1/24th.
1/24th of all the shows. Yeah, mostly when we think of Halloween albums, like you're saying, John, you think about a band that has songs that are sort of akin to that holiday. In the 1980s, so-called Halloween albums were mostly, death metal or, heavy metal albums like from King Diamond, Slayer, and Misfits, because they had these sort of horror, themed concept albums.
Yeah, well, they already had the skeleton on their shirt, so no extra costuming required.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to send you a link to the video for Night Boat.
Okay.
Well, for John especially. I don't know if Will's watched it.
Night Boat, is that like a Styx reference or something?
No. I don't think so.
No?
They're waiting for the night boat. And in the video, there's like zombies. There's all kind of creepy stuff.
Like I don't remember, was it Chiron who takes...
Yeah, Charon, who's the boatman of the River Styx. Yeah.
Could be a reference.
Yeah.
Now there's a great Alan Parsons Project song about the boat.
Oh.
Okay. Maybe you could cover that too.
You see that?
Yes.
Get on that, son.
There you go, Duran Duran.
Hey, another 1980s news, and as reported by The Independent, Brad Pitt just sold his haunted mansion for $39 million.
Wow.
So the Oscar winner first purchased this nearly 2-acre property, which is located in Los Angeles, almost 30 years ago from the actor Cassandra Peterson, best known for her character Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Boom, ba, boom, ba, ba, mow, mow.
Huh. So,
Elvira.
Yes.
Oh, you just saved yourself. You know that. Because I thought you were doing some Foley work. And when you did
supposed to be the
ba-boom,
ghost?
ba-boom, I pictured Cassandra Peterson sauntering in.
What? I was doing my Oak Ridge Boys impression. Come on, how dare you? Now who's getting canceled?
Well,
I gotta say, that's what I thought you were doing too, John. I just didn't know what to call
That's it,
it.
Cat.
No Oak Ridge Boys fans in the house? Good heavens.
No, I saw them in concert. I know, I'm with you.
She just
but
doesn't
it took
remember
a
every
moment.
single detail about the Oak Ridge Boys concert.
yes, exactly. Who are the Oak Ridge Boys again? Ba-doom.
Wait, they have a song called Elvira.
Ba-doom.
You're kidding me.
Oh my God.
He's like, ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-dunk-a-dunk.
It's on fire for Cassandra Peterson.
My hot pants are on fire for Cassandra Peterson.
I'm coming.
In 1994, Pitt bought the mansion for a reported $1.7 million, and from 1998 through 2009. And then from 98 through 2009, Pitt purchased 4 properties surrounding the home. Today, the luxury home includes a skate park, a tennis court, a koi pond, and several pools. See, now that makes sense to me, because I know Cassandra, when she bought this, because she talks about this in her book, which is a great book again, by the way.
And a tribal burial ground also acquired.
It was... You moved the headstones, but not the bodies.
Well, we used them to... we needed stepping stones. Come on, we laid them flat.
Yes, there we go. But I remember, I think when Cassandra bought it first, she had a pretty humble situation at the time. In fact, I know there was various times in her life she was struggling to make ends meet, before this character had really taken off. Look, for folks who read her book, we knew this already. But this week, the famed Mistress of the Dark revealed to People that she warned Pitt that the home was haunted before he purchased the property. While Peterson, we've talked about this before, when they refer to, in articles, they, instead of saying Pitt over and over again, they now refer to movies and stuff he's been in. But some of them you're like, go with the hits. Like, they say like the frequent, it'd be like the frequent Friends guest star. No, this isn't as bad as that. This says, while Peterson told the Babylon actor, I don't know what Babylon is.
That's that recent film that just came out that had who's the Barbie actress that was just you were just talking about Samara.
Samara Weaving.
Well, you said Samara is often confused for her.
Yeah, I know. I'm kidding. Margot Robbie.
Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Babylon was a early Hollywood send up kind of film. It was all about the raucous days of Hollywood, migrating from the talkies into the
But when she warned him about the supposed paranormal activity, instead of being afraid, he, quote, loved it. In spite of her warning him about the number of different weird things that she saw, he was eager to own a home like that. Among those things that she claimed was that she saw specters walking around the upstairs, sitting in front of the fireplace, entering her bedroom, and even, quote, floating around at the bottom of the pool, end quote.
Phil Spectors? That would be scary.
Oh, Phil Spectors.
Walk around with a gun?
Yes.
Goodness. That's terrifying.
Yeah. Run a comb through that. Oh, and put the gun down, too.
The pool one.
Yeah.
Hello. Like, if thinking, oh my God, there's a body at the bottom of the pool, and having to... Did they have to jump in and figure that out every time?
Figure out that it wasn't really a body there?
It wasn't. Yeah.
It was really a specter.
That would be alarming. Yeah.
That would be alarming, yeah.
No, you poke it with the scoop. You don't have to jump in.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's a good idea. The net. Use the net.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just goes through.
Is that the sound of a net going through a corpse that's fake?
It sounds very much like a ghost, not a corpse.
Why does that sound like a lightsaber?
Because it's underwater. That's the sound of a lightsaber underwater.
It's passing through something spectral.
Got it.
Anything that glows.
I like it. I bought it.
John's got the Foley sounds he does for anatomical things, and I do sounds
Yes.
for spectral things.
For spectral underwater things.
Now, look, this is the sound.
It's very niche.
This is the sound of a pull net. Is that what you call it? Going through a ghost that's well endowed. A female ghost with large bosoms.
Oh my God.
All right, ready?
Modum, 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 modum.
Baba mau.
So Cassandra and her then husband, Mark
I
Pearson.
didn't say va va voom. Okay.
It didn't matter though.
I can't tell if Kat's clearing her throat or she's broken. I don't know which thing has
She
happened.
might be nauseous.
Oh, she's broken. She's broken.
I'm broken.
I like hearing the distant "I'm broken."
Oh,
So years prior, Cassandra and her then husband, Mark Pearson, even had a priest come to perform an exorcism on the house. Again, that's covered in a book. Anyway, she says, quote, "We were telling Brad all about that, and he loved it. I mean, there are not so many buyers who that would be a selling point for, but he was like, oh, that's too awesome. I love he appreciated the house so much," end quote.
I think it's totally a selling point. If I ever sold my house, you have the sign out front and you have the arm on it and above it. You seen the one, it has just a little small placard under the sign that says not haunted.
Yes.
I know, that's a thing.
I think that's perfect.
That's a thing?
Because you're like, well, why are you pointing that out? No, it's totally not haunted. Of course, I'm just so you know, not haunted.
That's great, because the implication is the other houses for sale in my neighborhood, they don't have that sign.
They might be, right. This one, though, not haunted. Totally free of Phil Spectors.
Yeah. So you guys have owned homes, and maybe, you've owned homes before. You've purchased homes. Mm-hmm. You know that for the most part, the seller of a home has to disclose to you certain things. Mm-hmm. And it varies from state to state. But like, for example, if something that would, affect the integrity of the home physically, for the most part, they have to reveal that. So if the foundation has a structural issue, something with the beams, there's been water damage, a lot of these things.
Anything, sure. Right.
That sort of black mold. Some states require you to tell you if there's black mold in the property at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Asbestos.
Do you think you're required to tell a potential buyer that you think your house is haunted?
Required?
Yeah. Like I said, the examples we gave, in most states you're required, or many states you're required to tell certain things.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Do we think that haunted is one of them?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It's always been like this common knowledge, but not backed up with any statute, that you must disclose if someone died there in some form or fashion. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but like every movie is like, you've got to tell us, right? It's like, you got to say if you're a cop, right? No, you don't. But the people say that in movies, right? You're going to tell me, dude. I can't imagine. No. Well, first of all, for any legal entity to stipulate that you must disclose if a place is haunted, they must first admit that there's the Santa Claus, right? They have to then acknowledge that ghosts exist, which you then must disclose. So, why would you not disclose that it's haunted? Because I think that's a selling point. Because anyway, but I can't imagine there's a law on the books. I'm sure we'll be proving you wrong momentarily, but I can't imagine there's a law.
Well, look, like most laws, it varies from state to state what you're required to disclose or not.
Okay.
Right.
But, and John's right, in some states you're required to tell if a murder or a death or a suicide occurred in a home. And, if it's a meth house, if it was a meth house, that's another thing. That you might not be able to tell.
Okay.
But there's 4 states that specifically mention paranormal activity in their real estate disclosure laws.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, please tell me Florida's one of them. I'll be so disappointed if Florida's not one of them.
I'm voting with you, John. On that
In Minnesota and Massachusetts, it's unnecessary to disclose if the house is haunted.
Okay.
In New Jersey, a seller must truthfully tell a buyer if their property comes with ghosts, but only if asked.
In New Jersey?
Yeah. But as for the 4th state, which is not Florida, New York, real estate agents must be mindful of a court decision often referred to as the Ghostbusters ruling.
Oh my gosh. I had Ghostbusters in my head while you were talking because New York. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, and the name is not because of the location of this ruling, but more because of when the ruling occurred, because it was in the.
Okay.
So throughout her ownership of her property there in Nyack, New York, Helen Ackey and her family reported seeing a number of poltergeists. On 3 occasions between 1977 and 1989, she told these disconcerting tales to Reader's Digest and a local newspaper. She recounted several instances in which the poltergeist interacted directly with family members, including that her grandchildren would receive gifts of what she called baby rings that would then suddenly disappear. She also claimed that a ghost would wake her daughter in time for school.
Wait. I got to talk about baby rings.
What?
Is it a ring the size suitable for a baby, or is it a ring made out of babies?
A baby ring?
Or both.
I've made you a ring.
Why is it crying? Why is the ring crying?
When you put it on, you can hear a faint cry.
Feed it. Feed it your finger. It may be both, John. I don't know. They don't speculate. But maybe because it's grandchildren.
Okay, fair enough. It's that size and also manufactured from those raw materials.
Or maybe it was also manufactured by babies.
Okay, yeah.
That's a third possibility. Any of those
Child labor.
But she also said her daughter was awoken. That a ghost was waking her daughter up for school every morning by shaking her bed.
What? Really?
But that when her daughter pointed out loudly, "Hey, I'm on spring break this week," the ghost stopped shaking the bed early for that week.
Again, selling point. If you have a free automatic alarm clock that you can put on snooze during spring break.
And you don't even have to set it. It just knows.
That's right.
It's always listening.
Well, put on your baby ring. It's time to go to school. It's spring break, dude. Seriously. Come on, Phil.
It's like a physical manifestation of like Alexa or, whatever.
Yeah, always listening, ready to do whatever. Ready to do your bidding.
Yes.
So when Jeffrey Stambovsky agreed to purchase the house in 1989, the broker told him of the haunting. At the time, Stambovsky laughed it off, saying, quote, "We'll have to call the Ghostbusters," which, again, at the time, the second Ghostbusters would have just come out around that time, 1989 would have just come out.
That's a big Twinkie.
Not being from Nyack, he wasn't familiar with the home's notorious reputation because, again, it was in Reader's Digest, it was in local newspapers. At some point, her house was on some 5-house tour.
Okay.
But when he met with Ackley 2 weeks before closing, she passionately told him of the unwelcome house guests. So the way I understand it, and later on, he'll say he was never told about the ghosts until after he signed a contract. But it seems to me maybe he was told before he signed, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's funny." Then he met her, and she was like, "No, there's fucking ghosts in here, man. This shit is going down." And he was like, "Oh." So after learning that, he didn't show up to closing. So the lawsuits are filed by both parties for breach of contract. Ultimately, to make a long story short, the case went through the different courts and finally heard on appeal in 1991 by the New York Supreme Court's Appellate Division. And they held that a house is very specific, but this is still, as far as I know, a rule that must be followed. Or a law that must be followed. I guess a court-created law that must be followed. That a house for which the owner had previously advertised to the public as haunted by ghosts, which she did by talking to the press about it, legally was haunted for the purpose of rescinding a contract by a subsequent purchaser. So for all legal purposes, if you say your house is haunted and you make it publicly known enough, that house is considered haunted. So to John's point, we don't have to prove, or maybe distinguishing from John's point, we don't have to prove Santa Claus exists. If you go around saying Santa Claus exists, for the purposes of this contract, Santa Claus exists. So if that's a reason to get out of the contract, you can get out of the contract.
That is some limp, milquetoast, awful proof of existence of ghosts, if ever. If you've ever said out loud to anyone there are ghosts here, you must disclose. It's almost denying the existence of ghosts. It's just saying, well, people will think your house is haunted because we advertised it in the past.
That's what it is. So ultimately, in this the thing with the murder, the thing with the meth houses, they all fall into this category of what's called like emotional conditions or
like public perception,
stigmatized houses. That they can be perfectly cleaned of all the meth crap, but and the fact that someone died there doesn't usually mean anything. But yes,
right.
Most of our culture is filled with dummies, so they could affect the purchase. So.
The reality is somebody's died everywhere on a long enough timeline, but in a house, there's that energy that look, I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if it's real. I don't hang out with ghosts, but
he's not afraid of ghosts either.
No. If you're going to put it in law, it should be more than just have a priest come in and verify that it's haunted or something.
A young priest and an old priest, both.
Right.
Cover all the bases there.
By law.
Hey, all right. And finally, in 1980s news, as reported in Forbes, Disney's Prom Pact uses 80s nostalgia to tell a fun, quirky, universal story. So I just learned about this movie, and obviously we're talking about 80s proms today. But it came out at the end of March on a Disney Channel and Disney Plus. It's all about the 1980s. Well, not exactly, because it's set in contemporary times at a high school in 2023. But it's the height of prom season, and in the school they decide that it's going to be an 80s themed prom. So throughout the story, we've got a number of over the top 80s themed promposals, which I hadn't heard that phrase before. Promposals.
Okay. Promposals.
And those include homages to a number of different films, including Ghostbusters, Say Anything, The Breakfast Club. I watched this little trailer for it that all they did was talk about how their ties to the 1980s were. And there are dozens and dozens, which made me interested in actually watching it.
Is it just me?
Yeah.
Or aren't promposals a millennial thing? I don't remember people making a big deal out of asking someone to prom.
Right. Yeah.
I don't remember flash mobs and crazy sets and dance numbers and things like that. You just used to go, you want to go to the prom? You just asked, right?
Check yes or
nervous,
check no.
You're anxious, whatever. Yeah. I mean, the promposal thing seems like a much more modern thing.
Oh, yes.
Did you have that in the 80s? I don't think so.
No. Well, we could talk about our proposals, if any, in a minute here. Talk about our own prom memories. But I agree with you, John. The movie stars Peyton Elizabeth Lee as Mandy, with Milo Manheim as Ben, Blake Draper, blah, blah, blah. A bunch of people I don't know. While Julie Bowen of, what's that family show? It's Modern Family.
The big ensemble thing. Yeah. I knew what you're thinking of. I couldn't get there.
Yeah, Julie Bowen serves as the executive producer of the film, along with Anya Adams, who's the director. While the promposals play a large part in the movie, they're not in your face. They mostly happen in the background. And as a result, Adams said that it was necessary for her and her team to work hard to discreetly integrate them into the narrative. That said, probably for anybody who's not so familiar with these movies as we are, they fit into the story, and it's like, oh, that's quaint. For me, even just watching this behind the scenes stuff, I was like, oh my God, that's clearly, Say Anything. I mean, one of the promposals is a guy has, Lloyd Dobler's car in a parking lot. And he's dressed like him. He has the radio.
So over,
that kind of
promposals are in the same category with gender reveal parties.
Oh, yes. Good comparison.
It's that same kind of like,
Like, what is that phenomenon? They're just making a bigger deal out of...
Let's make a big deal out of the mundane.
Like, life's not interesting
because
enough.
it's special to you at the moment.
Oh, I see. It also makes a bigger deal about me. Like, if I'm not going to be on my phone, I need to make every bit of my life so jazzed up and interesting. Right?
Listen, well, I already tweeted today. I can't do it today. Well, you could do it without tweeting. What, like, and you're going to tweet it and tag me? How's it going to work exactly?
How does that work? How does communication work?
You could just do it without tweeting it. It is possible.
Julie Bowen said, however, that using 80s movies as a backdrop, the team was aware that some of the storylines from those films are not quite so politically correct anymore. She said, quote, more than anything, I think when we were developing the movie, there were some kicking back against a lot of heteronormative stereotypes of those 80s movies that feel good to remember. And then you look back at them and go, ooh, problematic. End quote. In fact, there's an in-depth discussion about this in the movie itself, with the Mandy and Ben characters discussing the controversial plots of many of the films from that time period. I haven't watched that scene. I want to watch the movie just to, I think, to see all of this. But
I'm curious.
But I think Manheim, who's a young man who stars in this film, I've seen him in some of the other Disney Plus shows, the Zombies movies, which are musicals I watched with my daughter. Those are funny and fantastic. He's great in it too, by the way.
Oh.
But I think he said something that's very mature. He said, quote, we can acknowledge some aspects of those 80s movies are a little outdated. However, that doesn't make them in general bad movies. And I think something that's so great about that time period is just how, for the lack of a better word, classic it is. It's such a nostalgic period, end quote.
I always try to consider intent when I look at old media that has not aged well. If I look back and the intent was to be abusive or to be neglectful or to be whatever, then maybe I'm like, nah, it's garbage. But if the intent wasn't there, look, I think it's unfair to look back at a filmmaker or an actor or anyone and look at something they said or did at a time when something was either accepted or not, people weren't aware of it or whatever.
Sure.
We all live in our little time bubble. And at that time, that was acceptable. And now it's not. That doesn't mean you have to eschew it, pretend it never existed, because that's the way you don't learn from the past. And that's the way you just repeat it later.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as there was no harmful intent, I don't let those things bother me. I observe it and I look at it, but
I agree. I can recognize something as tasteless or outdated and be like, ooh, but it was okay at the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's important. There's some things maybe that are exceptions, but for the most part, context is everything.
Yeah, and thinking about how you're saying like that's how it was and what's the intent, etc. And I was thinking how this is. I have mixed feelings about this, but I think I'm coming down on one side in particular. The director Adam said that the movie is, quote, pushing the envelope a little bit and stepping into a new teen rom-com world that is, for Disney. And what the end quote. So what they did was they made two versions of this to cover their audience, their large audience. So one version has more of the, quote, high school references, which they said are the more advanced making out, more references to what actually happens at teenage parties, end quote. And so those things were in the Disney Plus version. But for a younger crowd, they just took out all those parts. There's still enough context that just sort of, I guess adds more color for the older audience. And they have this younger version without those on the Disney Channel. So you could actually wind up seeing a slightly different version depending on your age group and still appreciate the story.
Wow. Interesting.
At first I was like, in the 80s, we didn't have that. We saw hardcore sex in a PG movie and we learned what is it? Badoom, badoom.
Badoom, badoom, badoom.
What those were.
Boom, ba, ba, mow, mow. Yes.
Or you get your hands on the Duran Duran long form video and there's badoom, badoom in there.
Yes. And we learned how you can barter with a plumber if you don't have money at the time that the bill becomes due. But anyway, but I think that is pretty cool because there's been times I wanted to show movies to my kids and I'm like, everything's great about it, but they just don't know what these certain words are, or they're too young to be asking about sex or know about that. And we're not prudish here, but if I could just have just that 1 minute, you don't need that. For example, in Beetlejuice, for example, there's one F-bomb in it, and it's not necessary for the film. But when my kids were really young, I thought they'll love this movie, but he does say, nice fucking model, so if we could just have him say something, and not in the 80s where we'd be like, nice forking, motel. Whatever.
I'm tired of all these monkey flipping snakes.
Yes.
On this mother loving plane.
Exactly. All right. Hey, that was 1980s news.
Do you love 80s and 90s music?
You freaking should.
Yeah, because if not, you have issues. But if you do, then boy, do we have the podcast for you.
The Mixtape.
Yes, Matt, the Mixtape. Where we chat about, 80s and 90s music mostly.
Yeah, we sprinkle some other stuff in there too, though. A smattering of 70s and early 2000s.
Throw in celebrity interviews, a lot of immature humor, and some actual content, and you have a hell of a good time.
We do have a good time, don't we?
Yes, we do. Check us out. Spotify, Pandora, Apple, iHeart, pretty much all the places you find podcasts. You can search for us, The Mixtape Podcast. That's 4 words. Find us, listen, subscribe, share, and stay awesome.
Did you say whatever?
No, did I say whatever?
I don't know. I'm
That's
asking
your
you.
job.
Oh, that's your job. Wow.
To pay attention to every little detail?
No, it's your job to say whatever.
Oh, whatever. Well, it might be becoming contagious.
The pattern is this. The pattern is, John, I have a thought about something that's slightly off topic, but it's reminded me. And Kat says, I agree with you. That's what I was thinking too. Blah, blah. And Will goes, the director went on to say, he just jumps right back in as if we had not gone on the tangent.
See,
that is a Will.
He keeps us on track. Yep.
Well, I said to Kat when she said that to me when I saw her this weekend, it would be interesting to have at first I thought, that, it'd be great, Kat, if we didn't do that. We start off with the topic, and whenever someone goes on a tangent, we just keep going to that tangent. But then it occurred to me that's just most podcasts.
It's most podcasts.
That's just most shitty garbage podcasts that I hate.
I'm not saying I don't like being kept on track.
Yeah,
I'm worried that you're not enjoying participating in the tomfoolery of the tangent.
Well,
You're in a rush to get back to the story.
I don't think you have to worry about that,
No, I
John.
think we have a good balance.
Okay.
We have a good balance of the Cat and John show and 1980s now.
Fair enough. We'll be.
The meta show within the show.
I'm not the one that was doing blow off Boo Boo's junk. For the record.
If we're going on the record, I'm not the one who was doing it either. I did not do the junk on the whatever. I did bring it up though. That's true. I did.
You perpetuated.
I did point out that he did that. That's true.
I enjoy being on both podcasts, for the record.
Okay. I want to get on a
They're happening
second
simultaneously.
podcast. John's on 3 podcasts.
That's why this one takes so long to record. It's
nobody
actually 2
knows what we're talking
podcasts.
about.
It's actually 2.
Yeah, nobody knows.
I mean,
what
look
we're
at the
talking about.
time
We're gonna
now.
break this down. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's just whip through this. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about proms in the 1980s. But before that, let's talk about 80s proms because, as I mentioned, it may seem somewhat anachronistic that we could have an 80s prom in 2023, but these things are, going strong in one way or another, either high schools or in fact adopting 80s as a theme, much like in that Disney film we just mentioned, or in this other phenomenon I only recently learned about, adults are using 80s proms as, quote unquote proms as, a fun evening out or an opportunity to do a fundraiser, which is what Kat and I took part in this past weekend was an 80s prom for ladies only. So they called it a mom prom, asterisk, and one guy there that was DJing.
And Will.
And so anyway, it's still going strong. And Kat, we could talk about our proms actually in the 1980s. It wasn't anything like the prom that I remember going to, but I had a blast.
I'm so glad to hear that because I couldn't tell if you were having a blast or not. I knew I was.
Yes.
He has resting, not having a blast face.
That's true.
Yes, he totally
that's
did. And I completely agree with you. It was nothing like the proms that I went to. I went to 2 proms back in the 80s, and this was very different and better. It was even better, I think. But my 80s proms were important for a different reason.
Okay. Well, with regard to our prom of this past weekend, obviously we did have some things that you have to have at an 80s prom. It was decorated, in a sort of a colorful 80s type way. Most of the music that we played was from the 1980s, and folks were encouraged to dress as if they were coming to a 1980s prom. But most people just dressed some way reminiscent of the 1980s, which was really cool.
Right. Not an 80s prom particularly.
Right.
Yeah. That makes sense.
It was more the theme going with the
Right. They want an 80s
theme.
costume party is what they want.
Yes, it was an 80s costume party.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And there were 2 people who were 90s. They were in grunge,
Yes, right. Yes.
like flannel shirt.
Time travelers.
Yeah.
Slightly too old for the 80s. But yeah, there was a lot of folks with sweatshirts that were off the shoulder and, leggings and leg warmers. That was probably the largest category of. Second largest was the like tulle skirts.
Tons of neon wherever on a t-shirt or on the skirt.
You see some scrunchies? I hope there were some scrunchies there.
Oh,
yes,
yeah. Oh, yeah. There were scrunchies.
There's several Madonna stand-ins, Everybody looked fantastic too, by the way. It was just really
It was great.
Oh, I got there was those women dressed as the Robert Palmer's backup band.
That was
Those videos.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And Will had his picture done with them.
Right. You need at least 2 to pull that off, don't you?
And
There were 3.
There were 3.
Oh, perfect.
And
They must,
I got
they
to post a photo
coordinated.
of us together. Yeah, they were great.
And some of the dresses looked like they were straight out of the 80s. They had to have been. They found them in a vintage shop or something.
Went to Goodwill looking for dresses.
Yep.
But anyway, so it was a blast. 80s are very much still alive.
Oh, absolutely.
My only regret was I couldn't get up and dance with you, Kat, because it looked like I was. I loved so many of those songs, and make me want to.
Because it was mom prom. He was forbidden.
But also, yes, no. Get back on that stage.
You call yourself a DJ.
You have a penis? Get back up there.
I have a theory why 80s proms, not proms in the 80s, why 80s proms are a thing.
Okay.
Like there's not 70s proms. There's not 90s proms. There's not, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, if there are, you don't hear about them.
Right.
It's because of our films. It's because so many 80s films featured people at that time of their lives. They're, late high school or going in college or whatever. It's just so many of the Breakfast Clubs and the 16 Candleses and all those are around that era of time.
As he names 2 movies that don't have proms in them.
And so they're,
Go ahead.
it's okay, but it's those people at that time of their life, right?
It's yes. John
That's
Hughes.
right.
Yep.
All of those kids went to prom.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, I didn't remember that part.
No, that's okay.
But the point I'm making is that it wasn't a focal part of like 60s and 70s movies. You know, you had like American Graffiti. It wasn't talking about the prom culture. What was it like in school? They were talking about out of school. What'd you do outside of school and the hot rods and those sorts of things. And then later it was more like in the 90s, you started talking more about like drug culture and things like that and more mature themes. But in the 80s, we were coming out of the 50s. We had not yet matured. That's what we could talk about. Well, the most salacious thing is who's hooking up with who at the prom. And so that was the topic of so many of the 80s films.
Right.
So when we think of prom, we think of the 80s proms. I think that's my supposition.
I think that's right on. Yeah.
As you provide a perfect segue, I've got a list here of 7 1980s films and that feature proms.
Oh,
there's probably others.
That's why I didn't use. That's why I referred to 2 that didn't have prom, so I didn't blow your cover.
John,
I didn't want to use any of your.
It was just a warm up. Just a warm up to the other ones. Yeah.
John and I are
I'm with you.
John and I are like,
Simpatico, brother.
this is how we're connected on a spectral plane, a Phil spectral plane.
You are. You guys had something happen last week, right?
right,
What was
every week. I don't know.
Oh, we were just making fun of you.
Yeah.
We bonded over that.
Besides that,
So beginning with 1980s Prom Night, which is probably the most different of the prom films that I have on this list because it's a horror film.
Yep.
Where you've got Jamie Lee Curtis trying to survive prom night as a killer. I won't spoil it for you. A killer is trying to stab teens at a prom. In fact, at one point, a severed head even rolls onto the dance floor. Teen Wolf. In 1985.
yeah.
And by the way, a number of these films, they do not call what we would think of a prom as a prom. It's a spring dance. It's something else. Okay. And I'm guessing maybe that's because for international appeal, because even though we would regard it as a prom, it's a big dance, a formal dance. Other countries don't call them proms. They call them balls or formals or something else. Maybe
is prom short for something?
Promenade.
I was just
Promenade.
thinking, it must be promenade, right?
promenade.
It has
I didn't
to be.
know.
Yeah.
Out there and prance around and show your fancy dresses. Okay.
Swing your
That sounds very Victorian.
In Teen Wolf, if you recall, Scott shows up in full wolf. He's wolfed out in his like a white suit, and he winds up, there inventing some type of a wolf dance that everybody starts joining in by the end of it.
I really appreciated the tufts of hair coming out of his sleeve.
Yes!
That was a nice touch.
That was
a nice
pretty
touch.
good, yeah. Of course, Michael J. Fox also stars in Back to the Future, which another prominent and important prom.
Enchantment Under the Sea, a very specific prom.
Yes.
Oh,
Again, not
nice.
called prom, called the Enchantment Under the Sea, which...
Enchantment Under the Sea
What
dance.
does that even mean? Enchantment Under the Sea.
Does that have to do with the specters in the pool?
Yeah. Not the enchanted are under the sea. Enchantment.
Oh, okay. Well, of course, Marty, right, he helps with the band. He invents rock and roll. He gets his parents to hook up.
Like a prom.
Yeah, like a prom.
hookups, yeah.
Footloose, of course, ends with a big prom. And even though it's illegal, somehow they whip a prom up together real fast there.
That was, yeah.
Dancing is illegal. I was curious. Pretty in Pink, again, culminates in a prom. Of course, is this the scene that they reshot where Blaine gets the girl instead of Ducky and completely screwing up the movie. Who wants Blaine in a wig? He's kind of, I think he's not, I would pick Ducky.
Blaine in a wig.
Just One of the Guys. Do you remember Just One of the Guys? This pivotal moment at the prom where ultimately Joyce Heiser's character, she's impersonating a male character in high school this whole time. She finally reveals, coming right, it's part of the prom, there's this fight between Billy Zabka's character and the guy that she likes. And anyway, to prove that she's a woman, at this moment, she opens up her tux shirt and shows her naked booms.
Boom, ba, ba, mow, mow.
A boom, ba, ba, mow, mouse. Anyway. And then finally on this list here, my short list here is Can't Buy Me Love, another film where, culminates in this moment where the lead character creates a dance that has everybody following.
Are you saying Carrie is not on your list? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, it's 1978 or 70s. Yeah, Carrie, of course.
Oh,
of course.
There was
Edge.
definitely a prom there.
It'd have to be on there, yeah. Disastrous prom, yeah.
Same vibe. Yeah.
But yeah, right.
That would have made a mess on Michael J. Fox's White Werewolf's
Oh, man.
white tux. Oh, my goodness.
Yikes.
Well, in all these films, they've got, and I found MTV created somewhat of a list that I modified somewhat. There's tropes of these prom films that in a prom, and it seems like a lot of these films end in a prom or it's toward the end, the climax of a film is in a prom. There's so much dramatic weight put on a prom. And as a result, a number of things often happen in these films during the proms. Character revelations. Often you find out something about the lead character or the lead a character makes a discovery about, himself or herself, or they're, transformed, or there's a metamorphosis that happens there, where they go from the nerd to the cool guy, like in Can't Buy Me Love by inventing the dance, the alien African anteater. Music plays a pivotal part. And interestingly, in these prom scenes, the music the scene is scored diegetically, meaning that the music that we hear that scores the scene, it really exists to the characters in the film.
Sure.
It's part of their real world.
I didn't know that term, but yes, I get it.
So it's not Danny Elfman's score. It's Oingo Boingo playing on the radio in the actual...
Diegetically. It's a new one. You learn something new every day.
There you go. Dancing, we mentioned 2 films there where the character dancing is important. Now, either you've got a character, it was the 1980s, so it was an opportunity for them to show off the one guy in school who knew how to break dance, or surprise us that the lead character he would never suspect was an amazing dancer thanks to his body doubles. Looking at you, Kevin Bacon. For some reason at proms in the 1980s, I don't know if this is true, the only time anyone ever served punch in a bowl was at a prom in a 1980s movie. I mean,
so you could spike it.
Yes. I mean,
Right.
What high school administrator?
Right. Your goofball buddy has a flask in his tux and he's like, dude, clink, 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 spiked it.
Yeah. It's filled with Robitussin or something. Yeah.
And it's somehow sufficient to get everybody hammered.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever he brought in his jacket.
Yes. And whatever results from those drunk folks plays a role in it. Some revelation, playing back to the Revelations or, whatever.
Something.
And then finally, often there's a dramatic showdown, right?
Oh.
Friends realize they've been jerks all along and finally apologize at the prom. The geek gets the girl, the bully loses the girl. Sometimes the bully gets punched by the geek, who's now the super cool jock of the school, and so on and so forth.
All those impractical things that didn't happen in real life.
It didn't really happen.
John is just laying down segue after segue. I love this. This is fantastic. Yeah, so for some reason, I suppose, these proms in the 1980s films and since, of course, played such an important role where, this heightened realism where often the climax of the film, to John's point, I don't remember my prom being, any of the proms I went to being so dramatic.
Nope.
Mine were not dramatic.
Okay.
Like nothing, no big deal happened, except I think everybody got in trouble after the senior prom for making a mess. Somebody made a mess somewhere in one of the bathrooms.
Oh, that kind of mess? A biological mess?
I think so.
Oh my gosh.
I think so.
Or was it like a crepe paper accident in there? Like what kind of thing are we talking about?
Yeah.
But it was significant for me. Both my proms were significant for me personally because it was sort of inevitable that I would go to the prom because I came from a photography family who did all the pictures at the proms.
Okay.
My aunt and uncle, it was prom season and that's what they did. And there was sort of no question. Well, of course, everybody goes to the prom. Yeah. And I had friends who were going. I didn't think to myself, do I go or not? It was, you go to the prom. And I'm not even sure if any of my classmates didn't go, but one thing I did do was I took matters into my own hands and I knew who I wanted to go with. It was the person I had a crush on at the time for both of them. Yeah. And I asked them.
Get it, Kat. Get it.
Was this the Serpentine guy? No.
Oh, no. Actually, my junior prom date was kind of like Captain America.
Wow.
The skinny version or like after the
skinny
injection?
Yeah, he's skinny version.
For super serum?
He was yes.
She could see the potential in him.
I did.
Get a little serum in you to be hot.
Drink this punch.
I spiked it with serum.
Be careful. It's going to make you shit your pants later. You're going to lose.
Or now.
You're going to become incontinent. It's one story. It's all one story.
Oh, no. And he didn't go to my school. I'm just going to keep talking. He didn't go
to your school.
I worked with him.
Oh, okay.
We worked in an ice cream parlor together.
Oh,
and,
he was the hot plumber.
This is very...
It's come full circle.
The end. Bye. The end of the show. When that happens, the show has to end.
Oh,
right. I have money to pay you. Will you take me to prom?
I now picture Kat in one of those Scoops Ahoy costumes or uniforms, right? Like in Stranger Things with the striped little hat.
We just had no hats.
No
we
uniform?
Just had an apron.
Okay.
We had to wear a little apron.
Yeah.
But I had a crush on him, and I'm like, I want him to be my date. And I asked him, and he said yes. And
Awesome.
he was a kind of a popular person. Like, I was amazed that he said yes, but I wasn't waiting around. Like, I wasn't wondering, oh, who's going to ask me? I just sort of, like decided who I wanted. And the same thing happened the next year. I had it was someone that I had a crush on, actually since 5th grade. It was on and off, but he didn't go to my high school anymore.
Okay.
He went elsewhere, but I decided I want to bring him to the prom.
Yeah.
And, but I think my original point was the prom ended up being, it didn't start out this way, but it ended up being a kind of a catalyst or a rite of passage for me, like a milestone, because I gained self-confidence through this process. And also significant, the first time I can remember feeling comfortable dancing freely was at my junior prom.
Very cool. Right.
Yeah. And before that, like I never went to the semiformals. I never went to the, no, I shouldn't say I didn't go. I went, but I was always taking pictures. Like with my aunt and uncle, they would be doing pictures and I would do candid pictures. Like they would do, they would do the formal ones. And, but I was on the fringe. I was just around and hiding behind the camera. And then, so this was a big deal for me.
This is a 1980s movie. What Kat just said out, right? Earlier in the film, she's helping with the prom. She's not, she disappears into the background. Then she finds the courage to ask the hot Captain America dude.
And she's scoping out the guy from across town that doesn't even go to this school.
Right.
Scores him, gets him to take her.
Actually,
dances her heart out.
That raises
roll credits.
What was wrong with the guys in your school?
Not good enough.
There was nothing wrong. They weren't who I had my eyes on, I guess. And nothing happened from this.
The heart wants what the heart wants.
Yeah. And it was it. They were just my date. Okay. That was it. Nothing much to my dismay. Much to my dismay. Nothing happened. Yeah.
So when you went to your proms, was it a big, you went with other couples, you get a limo? What's it like where you grew up?
Yeah, senior year there was a limo situation with 2 or 3 other couples. But junior year, there was no limo. He came and picked me up and we went together and we hung out with some people afterwards. There was a socializing with friends.
Okay.
Was it the whole thing with the corsage and the...
Right.
Yeah.
There was a boutonniere.
To meet the parents and the photo shoot with the parents because of how pretty you look and all that stuff. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
my little girl, Kat's so pretty.
I don't think anybody said that about me. Junior year, there was less of that, the fussing, but senior year was a bigger thing. There were more photos and yeah.
John, did you go to a prom or something like it, whatever the equivalent was in your area?
Yeah, so I didn't go to my proms.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've been to prom. I didn't go to my proms.
Yeah.
So in my circle of friends, we were all the nerdy band geeks, and prom just wasn't on our radar. It was a thing the jocks did, kind of in my school.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I never felt inclined. I didn't feel like I was missing out, and there wasn't any sense of like, oh, you missed the prom. I'm like, well, they were all in school the next day, and they don't seem any different, and we're right back in school.
Yeah.
But the young lady I was dating when I graduated, she had her senior prom and had never been to prom, and she said, we're dating. Would you take me to prom? And I said, sure. So I'm like, I guess I'm 20 and she's 18 or I'm 19, whatever. She's 1 year younger than me, but I'm out of school. The shortest part of the story is the prom itself. It was dark. It was loud. It was not interesting. And the dance floor was empty. It was just the most morose, garbagey. There were balloons everywhere, but they didn't float. They were just on the ground. Balloons they blew them up with their breath. It's not nothing fancy. But we had made this plan, right? So we're living in Central Florida, and I said, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I'll take you to prom. We'll go to a nice dinner. Then we'll go to prom. And then we'll drive down to Melbourne. It's about 3 hours south of Central Florida, 2.5, 3 hours. We'll get a hotel there. We'll spend the weekend there. We'll just have a nice, make a weekend of it, not just the thing.
Wow.
And so we went to the prom and it was boring and we still had to drive to Melbourne. So probably by about 10 or so, we said, we got to get on the road. It's going to be after midnight when we get down there. But she still had her dress on and I still had my tux on.
Yeah.
And we got to our hotel where I had made reservations in Melbourne and I drove down from, many hours away. Mm-hmm. And I just remember the most horrible situation where it was a good rule. I understand it was a good rule, but the gentleman working the front desk of the hotel, who spoke very little English, but spoke 2 words very well, saw how we were dressed. Yeah. And I said, I'm here to check in. No prom. No prom. I'm like, no. No, we're not even from here. We drove from this. No prom. No prom. So here we are in Melbourne in our prom clothes.
Oh my goodness.
Tired, exhausted, nowhere to stay. So we drove all the way back home.
Oh, that sucks.
So it has very little to do with the prom other than being discriminated against because I can see the rule was like, where they're just leaving the high school and they're driving to the cheap motel and they're doing this. So we're just not going to allow kids to be here at all. I'm like, no, I'm not even in school. He didn't want to hear it. Nor could he understand me explaining it.
So
it didn't
it's
work
because you might be minors, because you might be paying by the hour. You might trash the room, probably all the
any
above.
number of those things, I'm sure. Any number, right? Contributing to the delinquency of horny minors, any number of things could have been, the reason that they did it. But I was counting on a hotel room because I wanted to sleep. I was just tired and wanted to go to bed. Yeah. I'm like, it's my girlfriend. I'm like, we could have done that at home. We're here to go to Melbourne. Nope, no problem.
Right.
You mentioned the dance floor was empty. What did you guys have? Bands, DJs? Was there music?
The music was just on loudspeakers.
Okay, so
it was just DJ'd, I guess, at
Ours
the time.
Was DJ'd, both.
Yeah. So I feel that even though I went to prom, I missed out on what is romanticized about proms in these in 80s movies and media and pop culture. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because the one I went to, which at that point would have been 88, so still well within the 80s.
Yeah.
It was just an auditorium full of tired, sad balloons.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no. That's so sad.
And the loudspeaker from the music room that they used during band or something. There was nothing magical about it. There's nothing cool about it. Yeah. Maybe if I'd been there when it was mine, it would have been different, but I can't imagine. Maybe it's because I grew up in the woods and they didn't have this stuff.
Was the prom in the woods? In the clearing?
No. Well, the town was in the woods-ish. So yes, in as much as that.
Did you hose down the dirt floor or dirt road?
This was lack of enchantment in the woods.
I do remember it was in the auditorium, the basketball courts, right? Yeah. So you couldn't wear dress shoes to your prom.
Oh, what? No kidding.
Because you couldn't have anything other than sneakers on the floor. Right. And so everybody was faking how to do like street shoes,
right?
Faking how to do sneakers as street shoes,
like duct tape they put on them or something.
Yes, right, duct tape, or they would do just like black uppers or something, and they would paint their tennis shoes black so they would fit with their tux. It was crazy, but there's that kind of like limitations on it. It was just like you're not really having a prom.
That does sound like Florida. You're right.
That's curious. Very curious.
Yep.
Both the proms I went to were elsewhere. They weren't on school grounds. It was at like a banquet hall. Right. One was at a banquet hall. One was at a hotel.
We couldn't afford
that probably added to the You what? Yeah, right. Yeah. That was probably part of the magic, I guess, is we weren't in the gym.
Yeah. Well, it's the same magic when you're a band nerd and you go to an away game, but you rent a Greyhound instead of a school bus. Like, whoa!
Right.
It's like flying first class. Like, these seats aren't even made of vinyl. This is amazing.
My knees don't touch the seat in front of me.
It's not made by Bluebird. Yeah. It doesn't have a stop sign on an arm outside when I pull up at the school.
Are either of you guys in touch with the folks you went to prom with? Still friends on Facebook or something like that?
Yeah, barely. On Facebook, yes, but
barely.
It's not really, barely. Yeah. Will, what about you? What's your prom experience?
So I went to an all boys high school in Jersey City, New Jersey. Okay. There, I did not go to junior prom, much like you're saying, John. I just had other interests, and I didn't see what what was so special about it. But by senior year, and maybe even started in junior year, I started dating a girl who would become my first like real serious relationship. I think we wound up dating for almost 5 years.
Wow.
And we did go to our senior proms, each other's senior proms. And
did she go to an all-girls school?
No, she was some towns over.
Standard high school.
She went to a regular high school there, but we met because she was it's something because she probably had to travel by a couple of buses to get to our school, but we had plays and we needed girls. We weren't like Elizabethan times where the men dressed as women to play the female part.
Right.
So we would just put casting notices out, and girls from different schools, including some of the all-girls schools, some of the public schools, would come. And she came from a couple cities over, and we wound up being in a play together. That's how we met. But
cool.
Yeah, of course, we played romantic interest in that play, so of course we wound up dating.
Naturally, maps.
But anyway, we went to each other's proms, and I don't know. Like you said, John, I guess maybe by then I felt different about it, maybe because I had a girlfriend, and it seemed like it had the more possibility of being romantic and sort of playing adult at the time, because you do get to get dressed up. And ours was like yours, Cats. Well, I remember it costing, it seemed like a fortune at the time, but now looking back, it probably was a small pittance. But I think it was a couple $100 to go.
Oh,
but I think that was with
mine
limo.
Was like 75.
I think that was rent. What is it? 175
for a ticket? No, just like $75.
Oh, 75. Okay, but we rented a limo
ticket. But the limos, yeah.
But and I'll probably get some of
the
these
whole package.
Yeah, and I'll probably get some of these two proms mixed, confabulated a little bit. But they were outside of the school. They were at some banquet hall, like you said, Kat. Where they served dinner at tables. It was like a wedding, in that sense. It was dinner was served a buffet style or something like that, and then ultimately there was music playing and dancing.
We didn't have food at our prom, the one that I went to. It was just like the chips and punch. That was it.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
It was just snacks.
Okay. Now, John, you don't have any interest in going at a prom. Well, I feel like we got to get a prom for John.
we need
can
to
leave.
We got to pull this
whatever,
together so John can have a magical enchantment.
Yeah,
not in the woods. Oh my god!
Is there something I missed?
No,
I don't feel that I missed out on anything. I didn't go because I couldn't go. I went because I wasn't interested in going. And then in hindsight, I wasn't like, oh, I really missed out. I never felt that way.
Yeah.
Because I didn't
into dancing.
I didn't have a circle of friends who also went, and they weren't talking about it, right? So it wasn't like I felt left out of anything. The people who went to prom were not the people who were talking to me anyway, so I didn't miss out on the conversations.
You didn't miss anything.
That's true. Yeah, my circle of friends was kind of like that too. It's interesting. I was thinking about this earlier today. There's one of the my prom from my school. I wound up going with these two guys, Julio and Manny. And these are two guys that I would have lunch with fairly regularly. But I don't know how we became friends. I don't remember us being in classes together. But somehow we became good friends and lunchtime buddies, and we would sneak off of campus to go to a McDonald's that was a few miles away when I had my driver's license eventually. Oh, we went to the prom together. I think probably any of us individually might not have been highly motivated, but together we were like, yeah, this will be cool to do. We were,
you were a squad. You had an entourage that you could roll in with. Yeah.
Group effect.
So a lot of being kind of, I don't know, fun in that way. We were dating. I think we were all dating somebody at the time. But yeah.
That's exactly it. Well, I think if other people in my friend group were excited, I might have been infected by that anticipation of going.
Yeah.
But no one, you didn't like, so you go into prom and like, it was that kind of attitude. So I'm like, clearly something I don't need to be interested in. Yeah. But you kind of had that squad effect because other people, you went with. Yeah.
John, it must have been passed down the grapevine of how stinky your prom. Like it's in the gym. You can't
you don't
wear
want to go there.
shoes. Yeah. There's no food.
There's
Nobody
no
dances.
food for crying out loud.
You ate more food at lunch in the cafeteria than you're going to eat tonight at prom.
Yeah, I definitely remember we went out first.
Yeah.
Because many people did. Olive Garden is wall to wall on prom night. I tell you, in Florida, absolutely. That's uptown. If going to Olive Garden,
oh yeah,
and everybody in their dresses and their tuxes are sitting there getting the breadsticks and salad. It's every time.
I remember we didn't go out before, but after one of the proms, because of it was probably my prom because again I grew up in Jersey City, right on the Hudson River, across from Manhattan, and so I think the prom was held at a banquet hall in Jersey City.
Sure.
And after the prom, getting in the limo, it was a situation where the limo driver was like, hey, you guys want to go to New York? Which was literally a 5-minute ride through the tunnel that was right there.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do that. So we go there and it's like, hey, you guys want to go to a dance club or a comedy club? So we wound up going to Dangerfields, which was Rodney Dangerfield's comedy club at the time. And speaking to Dan Pasternak, some time ago, who knows, he knows everybody. Apparently, he's a great guy, but he's friends with Paul Provenza, the comedian. He said, if I probably saw Paul perform there because Paul would always lament about later years about how he had to perform for all these prom crowds because the limo drivers would get kickback for bringing people to these clubs.
Oh, but bringing them in.
Oh,
and I don't think any of us was technically old enough to get in there, but it was in the 80s. Right. And so nobody cared or whatever. We could drink. I didn't drink. And my girlfriend didn't drink, so it didn't matter. But
that goes directly back to what we're talking about with intent, right? In the 80s, they were not contributing to the delinquency of minors. They were getting some new clientele. Yeah. Right? They weren't being nefarious. They weren't being sneaky. They weren't trying to get you hooked on something other than comedy and spending money, So yeah, I don't look at that as like, you did what with kids? No, you would let these 18-year-olds into a club. It was great. Yeah.
I remember, Kat, too. You said about dancing openly for the first time. And I think I did that too for me at a prom because most, high school dances, I would DJ at a lot of the dances.
Yes.
And I told you guys before, like I would break dance as a young person, but I would never feel comfortable just dancing like, non-break dancing or not slow dancing. Right. Except at home, I would practice doing things because I felt motivated to dance. I just didn't feel comfortable doing it. But I remember dancing at one of these proms. It must have been mine again, because I remember this. Yeah, it was mine, because I remember the gal who said this to me was a friend of mine. She was with one of my friends as a D. She looked at me while I said, you dance? And I was like, yeah, and now I dance. That's
That's me now. It's on my resume.
Skill unlocked.
Yes, I mentioned one time on one episode about I went to dance school or dance classes, and that was fine. I could follow the moves, I was taught up on stage. But I felt kind of paralyzed in like at the 8th grade dance. I didn't know what to do with myself. It took a long time for me to just be able to go with it. Yeah.
We've talked about this, and all of us have done at that age, had been performing in public, playing an instrument or dancing or acting. Yeah. But it's interesting how feeling comfortable doing one thing on stage doesn't translate to everything, every aspect of your life. You can be an introvert.
But all those other things, structured performance is one thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's the solo improvisational performance. That's something entirely different.
Yeah.
That's identified with you. If I'm performing in a group, well, it's the band. It's not just me, So you can hide in that crowd, and you can't really do that with dancing unless it's packed. And as I told you, the prom I went to, not
you'd be the only one out there.
You just be out there kicking balloons. That's all you'd be doing.
John, that's what I was
kicking balloons.
The mom prom.
Kicking balloons.
Because nobody was dancing at first, and I really, really, really wanted to dance, but that old self-consciousness was, I was trying to chase it away. So I just kind of bopped on the edges of the room and kicked some balloons.
Just stylishly, like there's a little kick with flair. There's another balloon kick with flair. Now I'm dancing.
On the beat,
Right. Yes. Kick balloons on the upbeat, 2 and 4.
I remember my girlfriend, when we went to her prom, she had a best friend. I wish I could remember her friend's name, because she had a best friend who twice we tried to set up with one of my good friends.
Oh.
And neither time worked out. One time was pre-prom, I think. So it was just like a double date, and that didn't work out. So when prom rolled around and she needed a date, I didn't go back to this friend. Instead, I went to my friend Dominic, who I've talked about before.
Oh, yes.
Dominic was a man come 8th grade. He was already a man. 8th grade. So by high school, he was definitely a man.
Oh, boy.
But when we went to prom, I wish I remember.
I want to meet this guy.
Oh, he's a character. I love this guy. So Dominic goes, to the prom with me and my girlfriend. And by the time the end of the prom, he leaves with somebody else.
Wow, what a dog.
He leaves with the girl he met at the prom. So some girl at the prom ditched her date for Dominic, and he ditched this. So when we rode home on the limo ride, it was just the 3 of us, my girlfriend and me and her best
Somebody
friend.
brought a knife to a gunfight. I didn't know Dominic was going to be
here.
Yeah. I'm way outclassed.
I mean, it's just, I felt so bad.
Did you have words with Dominic?
No. I was high fives.
Way to go, dude!
I probably was upset with him at the time. I probably was. So, Kat, you said you were gonna share some prom pictures with us, right? Maybe we can expect to see those if you can.
I will share them with you. I just didn't get to dig them.
No, right now. I just meant for the we could share them on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, sure, I will.
I'll see if I have the prom picture. See if I can find the prom picture.
Awesome.
I was thinking about this too. My mom has my a lot of pictures from high school, including my prom pictures. And I'll be honest with you guys. And right now I feel like automatically, because we're talking in a public forum like this, there's something about me that's being protective of me. But I know seeing those pictures, and I imagine telling you these stories was going to be very upsetting to me and emotional.
Oh, wow.
Because the girl that I dated at the time, how things ended was never resolved. I've told you about this before.
You did.
And
Yes,
I've just learned this recently. I've realized this recently because I had this epiphany. Because we went from dating for so long and seeming like and believing we're going to get married. I mean, this is just, it was a very mature relationship for, late teens, early 20s. There was no reason to think otherwise. That we went on this little break that she requested.
She requested.
It's her idea.
It always is.
And then I think we were both expecting, and I certainly was, that we'll get back together again. Right. That when we then just sort of went our separate ways and never did, I never let myself grieve over the fact that she effectively dumped me for a period. I'm going to just dump you for a period. You know what I mean? That's what this break is.
Sure.
And I think because I didn't do that, there's a part of me that's still in that we're still going to get married, be together. Not, this is not to say that I feel like I should be with her. Of course not.
But the feelings.
But there's that, stored in my memory bank is that continuing relationship that I never let die. I killed it off because I was pissed at the time.
Right.
If you want to see other people, well, that's fucking, no, actually I acted very mature about it. Like, well, that's human nature. Yeah. We're going to be together. It's fine. But I never let myself get overly sad and cry
It's not quite unrequited love, but it's certainly something that did not have a finality to it. Right?
Yeah.
It's almost like it's almost
closure.
like a disappearance versus a death, right? You're like, if you lost someone, but are they really gone? We haven't, nobody found a body. And it's one of those kind of things where people say they want closure if they lose a loved one, right? It's that kind of thing.
No closure.
There's no closure to your relationship, right? Never found a body, just went missing. Like and everybody wanted you to act normally, even though you're dealing with this. I get it.
Yeah. And I forced myself to act normally because I was going to be above it. But anyway, so even I don't know that I could look at my prom picture, honestly. I think it would be upsetting. I think it would be upsetting.
You could look at it.
I don't think so. I think
maybe.
Because there's a part of me connected to that time when things were fine and believing they were going to continue fine.
Maybe you need to look at it, though. Maybe it's part of the process.
I need to burn it.
Oh.
No, that's
okay.
No, that's probably not it. Right. And I told you, I reached out to her and I said, I'm sorry for my part. And she said, you're forgiven. She didn't say she was sorry for anything.
Ooh, and that was it.
She started it.
All that does is tell you about her. That's all it does.
Anyway, so I'm actively looking for a therapist now. All right. Hey, that was something. I don't know.
I'll go so far as to say it was a show.
I did an ugly cry, so we'll say it was a show. Which I thought I had the potential to do. Thank goodness. All right, there you go.
Yet.
Yes.
Yes. Our show is brought to you every week, thanks in part to our early adopters like Kathy Burke, Rick Parker, and Karen Flieger. And thanks especially to our Secret of Our Success level Patreon supporters, John Henderson, Craig Coletta, Marcus Taylor, Tony Great, Brad Bowman, and Nick Guillory.
Hey, and if you can support us, you should check out 1980snow.com/support for many of the ways that are mostly free ways you can help us out, but certainly ways you can chuck us $1 or $2 or $5 or $10, including just making a comment, sharing a thought like these. With regard to our episode today, we asked for some of your thoughts, feelings with regard to prom. It turns out I think a whole lot of people didn't go to proms.
Let's hear it.
Along those lines, and sort of along what John was saying, Miss So writes, never got the chance to go or homecoming either. I was too much of an introvert and too socially awkward to try and ask anyone to go back then. I had more fun staying home, reading, and playing games. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Again, you do?
Hey,
yeah. Had I not gone, I wouldn't have felt like I missed anything. It's just whatever. And Creaties also commented similarly, nope. My close friends and I spent the night and played D&D.
Excellent.
Straight out of the 80s. There you go.
Or maybe it's that the people who went to prom are not on Facebook. Maybe that's what it is.
They're too cool for Facebook.
There's right.
Good point.
It's just the rest of us.
We got lives to lead. We're not D&D nerds. We're not on Facebook.
Yeah.
That's why I'm on Facebook, incidentally.
Right, yes. As we are a lot of us.
I am not too cool for Facebook.
Yes. No, not yet.
Not too cool for
Not
Facebook.
by a long shot.
Fingers crossed. All right. Hey, we will talk to you again next time on 1980s Now.
Until next time.
Sayonara.
This podcast is part of the 80s Ruled Network. Visit the 80s Ruled on Facebook for more 1980s awesomeness.